He only wanted to celebrate a wedding, but one look at the baby in his ex-wife's arms was enough to turn his world upside down. If you like stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post every day, continuing. The air conditioning in the office on the 23rd floor of the commercial building in Canary Wharf hummed softly as Raphael Miller adjusted his tie for the third time that morning. At 38, he had built an empire from real estate investments that started with a modest inheritance and a lot of hard work. Now his construction, company Miller & Associates, erected skyscrapers all over London, and his name appeared on the lists of the city's most influential businessmen. On that Saturday morning, Raphael should have been reviewing contracts for the development in Richmond, but the golden invitation on his desk made him hesitate. John Peter Caldwell and Felicity Adams' wedding, an event that would bring together London's elite at St. George's Chapel in Belgravia. John Peter had been his colleague at the London Business School, and even after years without speaking properly, the invitation had arrived with a handwritten note. "Rafa, you have to be there. It will be unforgettable." Raphael sighed. Social events had become professional obligations, calculated smiles, business conversations disguised as pleasantries, and always that feeling of playing a role. Since his divorce 2 years earlier, these occasions had become even more artificial. The indiscreet questions about his love life, the speculative glances, the attempts to introduce someone perfect for you that invariably resulted in empty conversations with women who seemed more interested in his assets than in anything he could offer as a person. Putting the invitation in the drawer and spending Saturday working seemed a much more attractive option. But something, perhaps curiosity about John Peter, or simply the need to get out of the office, made him grab his BMW keys and head home to his duplex apartment in Chelsea. 2 hours later, Raphael adjusted the cuffs of his imported white shirt as the driver navigated the afternoon traffic towards Belgravia. The navy blue suit had been custom-made on Savile Row during his last trip to London, and he knew his appearance was impeccable. It was his battle uniform for social events, the armor that protected him from inconvenient questions and curious glances. St. George's Chapel was decorated, with arrangements of white roses and hydrangeas that must have cost a small fortune. Raphael greeted some acquaintances at the entrance, exchanged cards with potential clients, and found his seat in the reserved pew. The ceremony was at 5 in the afternoon, and he already planned a discreet exit right after congratulating the newlyweds. When the first organ chords echoed through the sacred space, all heads turned to watch the bride's entrance. Felicity was radiant in a dress that probably cost more than a popular car, followed by a procession of bridesmaids in shades of dusty rose. Raphael watched the scene with the detachment of someone who had already been through that experience and knew how quickly things could change. It was then that he heard the subtle sound of the side door opening again. Someone arriving late, he thought, without taking his eyes off the altar. But something in the muffled murmur that ran through the front pews made him turn his head. Maria Spencer stood at the side entrance, dressed in an elegant navy blue ensemble that enhanced her brown eyes. Her light brown hair, which he remembered always loose and rebellious, was now pulled back in a low bun that highlighted the delicate line of her neck. She was thinner, more elegant, but there was something in her posture that he couldn't immediately decipher. Raphael's heart stopped for an instant when he realized what Maria was carrying in her arms. A baby. A small child, no more than a few months old, slept peacefully against her chest. Maria's eyes swept across the church until they met his. For a moment that seemed an eternity. They stared at each other from a distance. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just held his gaze with an expression that mixed determination and something akin to melancholy. Then she looked away and discreetly headed for a pew at the back of the church. Raphael felt the world spin slightly. Maria, his ex-wife, the woman who had left home 2.5 years ago, leaving only a letter on the kitchen table and all her things behind. The woman he had loved intensely and lost due to his own negligence. And now she was there, with a baby. Throughout the ceremony, Raphael struggled to pay attention to the priest's words, the couple's vows, the solemn music echoing through the stone walls. His mind was completely focused on Maria's presence a few meters behind him. Who was that child? Whose child was that? And why had Maria appeared precisely there, precisely at that moment? The questions multiplied without answer. How long had she been back in London? Why hadn't she contacted him? And most importantly, why had she looked at him that way, as if there was something important that needed to be said? When the bride and groom were finally declared husband and wife, Raphael applauded mechanically along with the other guests, but his eyes were already scanning the back pews for Maria. She had disappeared. The reception would be at the Hurlingham Club, one of the city's most exclusive venues for social events. Raphael followed in the procession of cars, his mind still processing the unexpected encounter. Throughout the journey, he kept looking out the window, hoping to see Maria's car but couldn't locate her anywhere. The club was decorated with a discreet luxury that screamed money. Golden lights, imported flowers, impeccably uniformed waiters circulating with French champagne. Raphael greeted John Peter and Felicity, wished them happiness, and tried to blend into the crowd, but his eyes kept searching for a navy blue outfit and a baby in someone's arms. It was during dinner that he saw her again. Maria was sitting at a table near the dance floor, talking softly with a woman Raphael didn't recognize. The baby was sleeping in a stroller next to her chair. Even from a distance, Raphael could tell she looked tired. There was an exhausted delicacy in her gestures, as if she was making an effort to maintain her composure. Raphael pushed the food around on his plate, unable to concentrate on the real estate market conversation happening at his table. His eyes constantly returned to Maria, observing her every move, every expression on her face. She had changed. She was still the same beautiful woman he had fallen in love with 10 years earlier, but there was something different, a new maturity, a strength he didn't remember seeing before. When the band started playing and some couples headed to the dance floor, Raphael excused himself and went in search of fresh air. The club's terrace offered a spectacular view of the illuminated city, but he barely noticed the landscape. He needed a moment to organize his thoughts, to decide whether or not to approach Maria. It was then that he heard footsteps behind him. "I thought you'd be here." Raphael turned slowly. Maria stood at the terrace door, still holding the baby, who was now awake and looking around with big, curious eyes. Brown eyes, eyes that seemed too familiar. "Maria," he said her name as if it were a long-forgotten prayer. "I didn't expect to see you here. John Peter is my brother-in-law's cousin. Felicity invited me." She took a few steps closer, but maintained a safe distance. "I thought you wouldn't come. You always hated this kind of event." Things change. Raphael couldn't take his eyes off the child. And from the looks of it, they change a lot. Maria followed his gaze and then looked at him again. "Your son, Raphael. Our son." The words fell between them like stones in water, creating ripples that expanded in concentric circles of silence. Raphael felt the air escape his lungs, as if he had been punched in the stomach. He swallowed hard. "Our son. Gabriel, he's 4 months old." Maria adjusted the child in her arms, and Raphael could get a better look at the small face. The brown eyes, the shape of his nose, the line of his chin, features he recognized from photos of himself as a baby. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out harsher than he intended. "Why did you disappear without saying anything?" Maria sighed, and he could see the weariness settling on her shoulders. "Because you had already disappeared long before I left. Remember the last months of our marriage, Raphael? You'd come home after 10 at night, leave before 7 in the morning. Weekends at the office, constant travel, meetings that lasted until dawn. I was married to a ghost." Her words echoed like accusations he knew were true. "I was building the company, Maria. I was working for us, for our future." "For our future?" She gave a bitter laugh. "What future, Raphael? A future where you'd be even busier, even more distant? A future where I'd raise our children alone while you conquered the world?" Raphael opened his mouth to protest, but the words didn't come. Because she was right. In the last years of their marriage, he had become obsessed with success, with the need to prove to himself that he could be more than his father had ever been. And in that pursuit, He had lost sight of everything that truly mattered. "When I found out I was pregnant," Maria continued, "I thought about telling you. I even scheduled a conversation several times, but every time you came home, you were too exhausted, too stressed, or simply not mentally present. And I realized that if I told you about the baby, you would stay with me out of obligation, out of duty, not because you wanted to be there." Gabriel began to whimper softly, and Maria gently rocked him in her arms, a movement so natural it demonstrated months of practice. "I didn't want my son to grow up feeling like he was a burden to his father. I didn't want you to stay with me out of guilt or responsibility. So I left." "And where have you been all this time?" Raphael asked, still processing the magnitude of the situation. "In Brighton. My sister lives there, remember? She took me in, helped me during the pregnancy. Gabriel was born there." Maria looked at the illuminated city beyond the terrace. "I only came back to London last week. I'm staying at my cousin's apartment in Notting Hill while I look for my own place." "Why did you come back?" "Because this is my city. My professional life is here, my friends are here. And because—" She hesitated, as if weighing her words. "Because Gabriel has the right to know his father, even if you don't want to be part of his life." Raphael felt a mix of emotions clashing in his chest: anger at being excluded, guilt for having caused this, fear of the unknown, and strangely, an intense curiosity about that small person who carried his genes. Can I hold him?" Maria hesitated for a moment, assessing his face. Then she carefully extended Gabriel into Raphael's arms. "Be careful with his head. He's still very small." Raphael received his son with the delicacy of someone handling crystal. Gabriel was lighter than he expected, but at the same time seemed to carry the weight of the world. The baby opened his big eyes and stared at Raphael with intense curiosity, as if trying to decipher that new face. "Hi, Gabriel," Raphael whispered, his voice choked with an emotion he couldn't name. "Hi, son." At that moment, something irreversibly changed inside him. It wasn't a magical instant connection like in the movies. It was something more subtle and at the same time deeper. It was the recognition of a responsibility that went beyond anything he had ever experienced. It was the weight of realizing that there was a person in the world who was permanently and irreversibly linked to him. "He has your eyes," Maria said softly, "and your stubbornness. When he wants something, he doesn't give up until he gets it." Raphael chuckled softly, and Gabriel seemed to react to the sound with a small smile. How has it been taking care of him alone?" "Difficult, very difficult." Maria was honest. "Especially in the first few months, but also incredible. He changed everything for me, made me stronger than I thought I could be." They stood in silence for a few minutes, Raphael holding Gabriel while Maria watched them. Inside, the band played a romantic song, and the happy murmur of guests celebrating John Peter and Felicity's love could be heard. But there on the terrace, there were just 3 people trying to find a way amidst the wreckage of a complicated past. "What happens now?" Raphael finally asked. "I don't know," Maria replied honestly. "I didn't come here today expecting to find you. It was a coincidence that was perhaps inevitable, considering we live in the same city. I want to be part of his life." The words came out of Raphael before he even realized he had made that decision. Maria stared at him intensely. "Are you sure? Because being a father isn't about showing up when it's convenient. It's not about sending money and feeling good about yourself. It's about being present during difficult nights, during illnesses, during boring and repetitive moments. It's about changing your life completely." "I know I messed everything up between us," Raphael said, carefully returning Gabriel to his mother's arms. "I know I was a terrible husband in the last few years, but I would like a chance to be a better father." Maria studied his face for a long moment. "I'll think about it. But if you want to truly get to know Gabriel, you'll have to do it on my terms, slowly, without pressure, and with a lot of patience." "I understand. I hope you really do understand. Because this time, Raphael, it's not just about you, it's about a child who deserves the best we can offer." She turned to go back to the party, but stopped at the terrace door. "My number is still the same in case you want to get in touch." And then she was gone, leaving Raphael alone on the terrace with a spectacular view of the city and a completely new understanding of how small and incomplete his world had become. The party continued around him, but Raphael could barely concentrate on anything other than the revelation of the last few hours. He had a son, a child who carried his DNA, his eyes, possibly his flaws and virtues, a responsibility that would change everything in his carefully organized life. And Maria, the woman he had lost due to his own arrogance and obsession with work, was back, stronger and more determined than ever, but still carrying the wounds he had inflicted. For the first time in a long time, Raphael Miller had no plan. He had no strategy. He just had the certainty that his life had changed forever on that terrace, under the lights of London, with the distant sound of a wedding party celebrating the love he had lost and now, perhaps would have the chance to rediscover in a completely new way. Raphael woke up on Sunday morning with a strange feeling. It wasn't anxiety or exactly nervousness. It was something deeper, as if he had discovered that a fundamental piece of his life's puzzle had been missing without him realizing it. Throughout the night he had dreamed of small, curious brown eyes looking at him. The duplex apartment in Chelsea, which had always been his private refuge, seemed different that morning. Too silent, too perfect, too empty. Raphael walked through the rooms decorated by a famous designer, neutral colors, modern furniture, carefully selected works of art, and for the first time questioned whether it was really a home or just an expensive showroom where he slept. He picked up the phone several times to call Maria, but always gave up before dialing. What exactly would he say? "Hi, about our son I didn't know existed until yesterday." There was no social protocol for a situation like this. It was only on Monday, during a meeting about the new development in Shoreditch, that Raphael realized he hadn't been able to concentrate on anything else since the wedding. Numbers, blueprints, schedules, everything seemed irrelevant compared to the fact that there was a child in the world who was half of him and about whom he knew absolutely nothing. During lunch at a Japanese restaurant in Canary Wharf, while his partner Charles lectured about profit margins and delivery deadlines, Raphael found himself imagining what it would be like to bottle feed a baby. Would it be difficult? Would Gabriel prefer warm milk or room temperature? How did one know when a child was hungry or just irritated? "Raphael, are you listening to anything I'm saying?" Charles brought him back to reality. "Sorry, Charles, I'm a bit distracted today." "Distracted? You're never distracted, especially when we're talking about £15 million of investment." Raphael sighed. Charles had been his partner for 8 years and knew him too well. "I discovered something over the weekend that changed my perspective on a lot of things." "Woman? Son?" Charles almost choked on his sake. "Son? What son? You haven't even been dating anyone seriously for months." "It's complicated." Raphael poked his sushi without wanting to eat. "Remember Maria?" "Your ex-wife?" "Of course I remember. Incredible woman. I never understood why you two broke up. I understood on Saturday." Raphael briefly recounted the encounter at the wedding, omitting some more intimate details. Charles listened in silence, with an expression that mixed surprise and something akin to, "I can't believe this." "Man, this is—" Charles shook his head. "Are you sure the child is yours? Just look at him. It's like seeing a picture of me as a baby. And now? Now I need to learn to be a father, and I have no idea how to do that." Charles was thoughtful for a moment. "My brother has 2 small children. According to him, no one is born knowing how to be a father. You learn by making mistakes and trying again. Your brother had 9 months to prepare, and a wife to help. I have a 4-month-old son who doesn't know me, and an ex-wife who has no reason to trust me. Then you'll have to prove you've changed." "Changed what exactly?" "Your priorities, Raphael. Have you thought about how many hours you work a week? How many weekends have you spent at the office this year? When was the last time you had time for something that wasn't work?" Charles' questions echoed in Raphael's mind for the rest of the afternoon. That night, instead of reviewing contracts late, he turned off his computer at 6 and went home. He sat on the balcony overlooking the park and finally called Maria. "Hello?" Her voice sounded tired. Maria? It's Raphael. Silence on the other end of the line. He could hear Gabriel crying in the background. Sorry to call at dinner time, he said. There's no right time when you have a baby, Maria replied, and he could hear footsteps. Gabriel is having a difficult day. I think his first tooth is about to come in. Is that normal? It is, but it's not easy. For either of them. The crying gradually subsided. Why are you calling, Raphael? I wanted to know if I could see Gabriel again, spend some time with you, learn, I don't know, how to be a father. Maria was quiet for a moment. Are you sure you want this? Because taking care of a baby isn't like a business meeting that you can reschedule if something more important comes up. I'm sure. All right. Tomorrow afternoon I'm taking Gabriel to Hyde Park. If you want, you can meet us there. 3 o'clock. I'll be there. Raphael? Yes? Wear something you don't mind getting dirty. On Tuesday, Raphael cancelled an important meeting and left the office at 2 in the afternoon. He swapped his suit for a polo shirt and jeans, the most casual clothes he had in his wardrobe, and drove to Hyde Park. He found Maria sitting on a plaid blanket under a tree near the playground. Gabriel was lying on his stomach, trying to lift his head to observe the movement around him. She wore a simple floral dress and white sneakers, and her hair was loose, swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. For a moment, Raphael felt as if he had gone back in time, to the first years of their dating, when they spent entire afternoons in the park, talking about everything and nothing. You arrived just in time, Maria said when she saw him approaching. Gabriel just woke up from his afternoon nap. Raphael sat on the blanket, maintaining a respectful distance. How do I interact with him? Relax first. Babies feel tension. Maria picked up Gabriel and sat in between them. Talk to him. He doesn't understand words yet, but he understands tone of voice. Hi, Gabriel, Raphael said, feeling a little ridiculous. How are you today? Gabriel observed him with curiosity and then extended a small hand towards him. Raphael looked at Maria for guidance. He wants to touch your face. You can let him. The small, soft hands explored Raphael's face with intense curiosity. Gabriel squeezed his nose, pulled his lower lip, and then giggled. He liked you, Maria commented, and there was something akin to surprise in her voice. How do you know? Because he doesn't laugh for just anyone. He's been selective since he was little. Raphael felt a strange warmth in his chest. Childish approval shouldn't mean so much to a successful businessman, but it did. Gabriel began to get restless, and Maria explained that he was probably hungry. Do you want to try giving him the bottle? Raphael hesitated. What if I do something wrong? You will, everyone does at first, but he won't break. Maria prepared the bottle with an efficiency that demonstrated months of practice, tested the temperature on her wrist, and then handed it to Raphael. Gabriel was clearly hungry and threw himself at the nipple with enthusiasm. Tilt it. A little more. That's it, like that. If he chokes, stop and wait for him to cough. Raphael held Gabriel against his chest, feeling the small, warm weight of the child settling comfortably against him. There was something mesmerizing about the process, the soft sucking sound, the way Gabriel held the bottle with both tiny hands, the expression of serious concentration on his small face. This is harder than it looks, Raphael commented. It's a full-time job, Maria said. Every 3 hours, day and night for the first few months. Bottle, diaper change, nap, repeat. No lunch break, no weekends. How did you manage to do it alone? Maria was quiet for a moment, watching some children playing in the nearby playground. You learn because you have no choice. When Gabriel cries at 3 in the morning because he has colic, you can't decide you'll deal with it later. You have to deal with it right then. Gabriel finished the bottle and began to move uncomfortably. Maria showed Raphael how to hold him upright on his lap and gently pat his back to make him burp. Harder than that, he's not porcelain. When Gabriel finally burped, a surprisingly loud sound for such a small person, Raphael felt as proud as if he had closed a multi-million-pound deal. Why are you smiling? Maria asked. I don't know. It's strange. I feel useful. They spent another hour in the park. Raphael learned to make Gabriel laugh by shaking a colorful pacifier in front of him, discovered that his son was fascinated by planes passing in the sky, and experienced changing a diaper for the first time in his life. A process more complex and risky than any real estate negotiation. "You did better than I expected," Maria commented as they packed up to leave. "Is that a compliment, or did you have very low expectations?" "A bit of both." She smiled for the first time since he had arrived. "Gabriel liked you. That's rare. Can I see you again? Maybe tomorrow?" Maria hesitated. "Raphael, I need you to understand something. Gabriel isn't a new project you can dive into for a few weeks and then lose interest when something more exciting comes along. If you're going to be in his life, it has to be for real, forever." "I understand. I hope you do." She put Gabriel in the stroller and prepared to leave. "On Thursday, I need to take him to the pediatrician. If you want to come along." "What time?" 10 in the morning, St. Helen's Clinic in Notting Hill. "I'll be there." On Thursday, Raphael arrived at the clinic 15 minutes before the scheduled time. Maria was already in the waiting room, trying to entertain Gabriel with a cloth book. The child was visibly irritable and crying intermittently. "He hates doctors," Maria explained. "He always gets stressed here." Raphael sat next to them and impulsively extended his arms for Gabriel. To his surprise, the baby calmed down when he picked him up. "Looks like you have the magic touch," the nurse commented when she called them for the appointment. Dr. Henry Adams was a pediatrician with decades of experience who had attended Gabriel since birth. He greeted Raphael with polite and professional curiosity. "So you're the father," he said. "Gabriel has your eyes, and apparently your calm temperament." During the consultation, Raphael watched Maria explain about the symptoms of the last few days, the changes in sleep, the reactions to new foods. There was a maternal competence in her every word that made him wonder how one learned to decode a small child's signals. "Can I ask a question?" Raphael asked the doctor. "Of course. How do I know if I'm doing it right, being a father?" Dr. Henry smiled. "The same way any father learns, making mistakes, trying again and paying attention to what works. Gabriel will teach you what he needs if you're willing to listen." After the consultation, Raphael suggested they have lunch together. Maria hesitated. "Gabriel gets a bit agitated in restaurants. What if we go to my place? I can order Japanese food." "Do you have a high chair for a baby? A changing table? Anything appropriate for a child?" Raphael realized he didn't. His house was a completely adult environment without any consideration for a baby's needs. "Maybe it's better if we go to my apartment," Maria suggested. "It's small and a bit messy, but at least it has everything Gabriel needs." The apartment in Notting Hill that Maria had temporarily rented was the complete opposite of Raphael's house. Small, cozy, with simple furniture and clear signs of a baby's presence. Diapers drying on the clothesline in the utility area, bottles in the kitchen, sink, toys scattered around the living room. "Sorry for the mess," Maria said, quickly clearing some things from the table. "With Gabriel, it's impossible to keep everything organized." "Don't worry. Raphael searched for the right word. "It's real." Maria prepared lunch, simple pasta with tomato sauce, while Raphael held Gabriel in the small kitchen, observing her every move. There was a domestic intimacy in the scene that he hadn't experienced in years. "You cook now?" Raphael asked. Maria had never been very skilled in the kitchen during their marriage. "I learned out of necessity. When you have a baby, you can't live on takeout," she smiled. "And I found I like it. It's relaxing." During lunch, Gabriel sat in his high chair, eating small pieces of mashed banana, playing with the food more than actually eating. Raphael watched, fascinated, as Maria anticipated the child's every need, wiping his face before he got too messy, offering water when he started to get agitated. "You're very good at this," Raphael commented. "I had to learn fast. In the first few months in Brighton, my sister helped me a lot, but most of the time it was just me and Gabriel." "Was it very difficult?" Maria was thoughtful. The first few months were the hardest of my life. Gabriel had colic every night. I barely slept 3 hours straight. There were days when I cried more than he did. She looked at Gabriel, who was now playing with small colorful cubes on the floor. But those were also the months when I discovered what I'm capable of. I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. After lunch, Raphael insisted on helping with the dishes. The kitchen was so small that they had to move carefully not to bump into each other. At one point, Maria turned to get something from the cupboard and almost collided with Raphael. They stood still for an instant, very close, and he could smell her perfume, different from what she wore when they were married, softer, more maternal. "Sorry," Maria said, looking away. "My apologies." The moment passed, but left a subtle tension in the air, a mutual awareness that neither of them was ready to acknowledge. Gabriel started to get sleepy after lunch, and Maria put him down for a nap in the bedroom. Raphael took the opportunity to observe the apartment better. There were photos of Gabriel at various stages of his first few months, some photos of Maria with her sister and nephews in Brighton, but no photos of him or of when they were married. "Did you delete everything?" Raphael asked when Maria returned from the kitchen. "Delete?" "The photos. From when we were married." Maria sat in the armchair opposite the sofa where he was. "I didn't delete them. I put them away. But it didn't make sense to keep looking at the past when I was trying to build a new future. And now that I'm here? Now I don't know, Raphael. I don't know what happens now." They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the city noises outside and the soft sound of Gabriel's breathing in the bedroom. "Can I ask you something?" Raphael said. "You can." "What do you want from me? As a father, I mean. What do you expect?" Maria considered the question carefully. "I want you to be present, not just on weekends or when it's convenient. I want you to really know Gabriel, to know which song makes him stop crying, which position he likes to sleep in, how he reacts when he's developing something new. What if I'm not good at it? Then you'll learn, like every father learns, by making mistakes and trying again." Raphael leaned forward. "And you, Maria? What do you want for yourself?" "I want—" She hesitated. "I want a partner in raising Gabriel, someone I can trust, who will be there when I need them. Someone who understands that being a father isn't about having a child. It's about raising a human being." "And personally? Between us?" Maria looked at him directly. "Personally, Raphael, I'm still trying to figure out how to trust you again. You broke my heart in a way I didn't think it was possible to recover from. And even if there's still something between us, I can't risk getting hurt again, especially now that I have Gabriel to protect." Her brutal honesty hit him like a punch, but he respected it. He respected her courage to speak the truth instead of saying what he wanted to hear. "I understand," he said, "and I will prove to you that I've changed. It will take time, I know, but I will prove it." Gabriel woke up from his nap a little later, and Raphael spent another hour learning the basic rituals of fatherhood. How to change a diaper quickly, how to prepare a bottle at the right temperature, how to interpret different types of crying. When he finally said goodbye, it was already getting dark. Raphael drove back to Chelsea with a strange feeling. His luxurious apartment greeted him with familiar silence, but now that silence no longer felt comfortable. It felt empty. That night, instead of working late as he always did, Raphael stayed on the balcony thinking about Gabriel, discovering the world with curious eyes, thinking about Maria, who had become an even stronger and more admirable woman than he remembered, thinking about how to rebuild the trust he had destroyed with his obsession with work. And for the first time in years, Raphael Miller went to bed before 11 at night, dreaming not of spreadsheets and contracts, but of small smiles and tiny hands exploring his face with infinite curiosity. 3 weeks had passed since that first lunch at Maria's apartment, and Raphael had established a new routine. Every morning before going to the office, he would stop by the apartment in Notting Hill to have coffee with Maria and Gabriel. Initially, it had been an impulse, simply an excuse to see his son every day. But gradually, it became the part of the day he most looked forward to. That Friday morning was no different. Raphael arrived at 7:30 with fresh croissants from the French bakery on Bond Street and espresso, just the way Maria liked it. Gabriel, now 5 months old, was in his high chair eating mashed banana pieces, mostly spreading it on his face and bib rather than actually consuming it. "Good morning, champ," Raphael said, kissing the top of his son's head. Gabriel reacted with a toothless smile that made Raphael's heart clench in a way that still surprised him. "He's starting to recognize your voice," Maria commented, pouring the coffee. "Yesterday, when you called, he stopped crying and looked at the phone." Raphael sat at the small kitchen table, watching Maria move through the space with the efficiency of someone who had made every inch functional. In recent days, he had noticed small details that had previously gone unnoticed. The way she automatically checked the bottle's temperature on her wrist, how she anticipated Gabriel's needs before he even started crying, how she could do 5 things simultaneously without ever seeming rushed. "Maria," Raphael said, trying to sound casual. "I was thinking, this apartment is too small for the two of you, and the neighborhood doesn't have much green space for Gabriel to play in when he grows up." Maria stopped stirring the sugar in her coffee and looked at him with an expression he had learned to recognize as caution. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I could help you find something bigger. Maybe a 2-bedroom apartment, a balcony near a park. I can take care of the rent, the move." "No." The answer was so direct and firm that Raphael felt as if he had been slapped in the face. "Maria, be reasonable. You're working freelance, I can help." "I said no, Raphael." She sat at the table, but maintained a distance that hadn't been there in recent days. "I don't want your financial help." "Why? Is it pride? Because if it is—" "It's not pride," Maria interrupted, and there was a firmness in her voice that he remembered from the worst moments of their marriage. "It's self-preservation." Gabriel began to whimper in his high chair, clearly bored with the banana. Maria got up to clean him and take him out of the high chair, using the activity to avoid looking directly at Raphael. "I don't understand," Raphael insisted. "It's about Gabriel. I want him to have the best." "The best according to whom?" "According to you, who thinks everything can be solved with money." Maria put Gabriel on the living room rug with some toys. "Raphael, you disappeared from my life for 2.5 years. Now you come back wanting to pay for everything as if you could make up for your absence with a bank account. It's not that, it's exactly that." Maria turned to face him. "You did the same thing when we were married. You worked 16 hours a day, missed dinners, cancelled trips, forgot anniversaries. But you always made up for it with expensive gifts, fancy restaurants, a diamond bracelet when you forgot our wedding anniversary." Raphael felt the blow because he knew it was true. "I was young, I was building the company." "And you think you've changed? Raphael, in the last 3 weeks, how many meetings have you cancelled to be here? How many times has your phone rung during the time you spend with Gabriel?" Raphael opened his mouth to protest, but closed it when he realized he had no defensible answer. His phone had rung constantly in recent weeks. He had cancelled meetings, postponed important decisions, let Charles handle more responsibilities. "Being a father isn't about paying for more expensive rent," Maria continued. "It's about being present. It's about waking up in the middle of the night when Gabriel is sick. It's about changing diapers and giving baths and reading the same story 15 times in a row. It's about putting his needs before your own ambitions." "I'm doing that," Raphael protested. "Are you? For how long? Until the next important business opportunity? Until a project that could change everything comes along and you go back to working late every night?" Maria's words echoed through the small apartment like accusations he couldn't completely deny. Gabriel, oblivious to the tension between his parents, played on the floor with a colorful teether, drooling happily. "Maria, I've changed. Prove it." "How?" "Stop trying to buy our forgiveness. Stop trying to solve everything with money. If you want to be Gabriel's father, be a father. If you want to regain my trust, regain it with actions, not with a credit card." Raphael sat on the sofa, feeling defeated. "I just want to take care of you." "Then take care of us for real. Be present. Be reliable. Be the man Gabriel will look up to and want to become when he grows up." The silence that followed was heavy, interrupted only by Gabriel's happy noises exploring his toys. Raphael watched his son and, for the first time, tried to imagine what it would be like to explain to a child why his father always came home late, why he always had to answer the phone, why work always came first. "You're right," he said finally, "about everything." Maria sat in the armchair opposite him, her expression softening slightly. "Raphael, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I raised Gabriel alone for the first months of his life. I learned not to depend on anyone, and now that you're here, I need to be sure that it's for real." "It's for real," Raphael said, "even if I don't know exactly how to prove it yet." Gabriel started to whimper, and Maria checked the clock. "Morning nap time? Do you want to put him to sleep?" In the last few days, Raphael had learned the nap ritual, carrying Gabriel to the small bedroom, gently rocking him while humming softly, putting him in the crib carefully so as not to wake him. It was a process that required patience and delicacy, two qualities he had never associated with himself. As Gabriel settled down to sleep, Raphael spent a few minutes watching his son in the crib. The baby slept with his fists clenched beside his face, breathing with the tranquil rhythm of complete innocence. There was something humbling and at the same time transformative in realizing that this small person depended on him in ways that went far beyond what any work contract had ever required. When he returned to the living room, Maria was tidying Gabriel's toys. "Maria," Raphael said, "can I ask you something?" "You can." "During your pregnancy, did you think about looking for me, even after deciding to leave?" Maria paused, holding a rattle in her hands. "Many times, especially when Gabriel was born. In the first moments when they held him in my arms, my first reaction was to think, Raphael needs to see this. But then I remembered why I had left." "Why had you left?" "Because I felt married to a stranger, because you came home exhausted and irritable, and I felt like I was getting in the way when I tried to talk to you about anything other than work. Because I realized that you were in love with your company, not with me." Raphael sat back on the sofa, the weight of her words settling in his chest. "I was in love with you. I always was. Perhaps. But you were more in love with the idea of success. And I understand, Raphael, I understand where that obsession came from. You wanted to prove you could be more than your father. You wanted to build something that would last. But in the process, you lost sight of what truly lasted." "And what lasted?" "This," Maria gestured between them. "Relationships, trust, love, the things you can't buy or build with hard work, the things that require presence." Raphael was quiet for a moment, processing her observation. "Do you still love me?" The question came out before he could filter it. Maria stared at him for a long moment. "That's a complicated question." "Why?" "Because I love the man you were when we met. I love the father you're trying to become. But I don't know if I can trust the man you are now." "How can I change that?" "Time, Raphael, and consistency. Prove to me that this version of you, the man who comes here every morning, who wants to learn to change diapers, who cancels meetings to take Gabriel to the doctor, prove that this is the real version, not a passing phase." At that moment, Raphael's phone rang. It was Charles, probably, calling about the meeting he had missed on Thursday. Raphael looked at the phone and then at Maria. "Answer it," she said. "I know you need to work." Raphael hung up the phone without answering. "I don't need to. Not now." Maria seemed surprised. "Raphael, you don't need to stop working because of Gabriel. You just need to find a balance." "How?" "Like any father does. Setting priorities, delegating responsibilities, understanding that not everything is an emergency that only you can solve." The phone rang again. This time Raphael answered. "Charles, I can't talk right now. Whatever it is, you handle it or schedule it for Monday." "But Raphael, Oliveira Construction wants to meet today about the South Bank project. If we miss this meeting—" "Charles, you've been my partner for 8 years. You know as much about the projects as I do. You go to the meeting. I trust your decision." Raphael hung up and looked at Maria, who had observed the entire conversation with an indecipherable expression. What is it? Raphael asked. Nothing. It's just, you never delegated before. You always insisted you had to be present for everything. Maybe I've learned that there are more important things than being present at meetings. Maria smiled, a small but genuine smile. It's a start. They spent the rest of the morning talking while Gabriel slept, conversations that ranged from memories of their marriage to plans for Gabriel's future, passing through confessions about fears and insecurities that neither of them had verbalized before. Maria told him about the lonely nights in Brighton when she woke up at 3 in the morning with Gabriel crying and felt completely alone in the world. About the first time Gabriel smiled and how she cried because she had no one to share that moment with. Raphael told her about how he had become obsessed with work after his father died when he was 25, how he had sworn he would be successful enough never to feel vulnerable or dependent on anyone, how that obsession had become a prison that kept him away from everything that truly mattered. You know what's ironic, Raphael said. I worked so hard to secure our financial future that I ended up ensuring we had no future at all. And now? Now I want to build something different. I don't quite know how yet, but I want to. Gabriel woke up from his nap in a good mood, and they spent another hour in the small apartment. Raphael bathed Gabriel for the first time, an experience that involved a lot more water in the bathroom than on the baby, but resulted in laughter from everyone involved. You're getting better, Maria commented, drying Gabriel with a soft, hooded bear towel. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for trying. When Raphael finally said goodbye to go to the office, it was almost noon. He felt different. Not exactly lighter, but more focused, as if he finally knew the right direction, even if the path wasn't yet clear. At the office, Charles greeted him with a worried expression. Man, what's going on with you? You've missed 3 meetings this week. You don't answer your phone. You arrive late. I'm re-evaluating priorities, Raphael replied, sitting at his desk. Re-evaluating priorities. Raphael, we have 15 projects underway, 2 launches next month, and you're re-evaluating priorities. Raphael looked at Charles, his friend, his partner, the man who had helped build the company from the beginning. Charles, do you trust me? Of course I do. And I trust you. So maybe it's time for you to take on more operational responsibilities. Maybe it's time for me to stop trying to control every detail of every project. Charles sat in the chair opposite Raphael's desk. Is this about your son? It's about my life, about what I want it to be from now on. And what do you want? I want to be a present father. I want to rebuild my relationship with Maria, and I want our company to continue growing, but in a way that doesn't force me to give up everything else. Charles was thoughtful. Is that possible? It has to, because I won't make the same mistakes again. That afternoon, Raphael did something he hadn't done in years. He left the office at 5 in the afternoon. Instead of going straight home, he stopped at the supermarket and bought ingredients for dinner. Simple ingredients, chicken, vegetables, pasta, because his culinary skills were limited, but it was a start. He called Maria from the supermarket parking lot. Hi. Have you had dinner yet? Not yet. Why? Can I come over and make dinner for you? Fair warning, my cooking skills are questionable. Maria laughed on the other end of the line. Gabriel's already had his baby food, but I accept the offer, as long as you don't intend to make anything too elaborate. Grilled chicken and salad, basic and hard to mess up. Perfect. An hour later, Raphael was in Maria's small kitchen, struggling to season the chicken properly, while she watched him with ill-concealed amusement. You know salt isn't poison, right? Maria commented, watching him season the meat with excessive parsimony. I'm being cautious. You're being timid. Gabriel was in his high chair again, now playing with small pieces of cooked carrot, more enjoying the texture than eating. Raphael divided his attention between the stove and his son, making faces that drew giggles from Gabriel. He's laughing more lately, Maria observed. Is it a phase? I think it's because he feels more secure. Babies feel the energy around them. When adults are relaxed, they relax too. And are you relaxed? Maria thought about the question. More relaxed than I was a month ago. Still cautious, but more hopeful. Dinner was surprisingly edible. They ate at the small kitchen table, with Gabriel in his high chair between them, creating a domestic intimacy that neither commented on, but both noticed. "Raphael," Maria said as they washed the dishes afterward, "thank you." "For what?" "For trying, for being here, for being different from how you were before." "I'm still learning." "I know, but you're trying. That means a lot." When Gabriel started to get sleepy after his evening bath, Raphael put him to sleep once more. This time the process was smoother, more natural. Gabriel settled into his crib without protest, as if his father's presence was now part of the expected routine. Raphael spent a few minutes watching his son sleep, thinking about how his life had completely changed in just a few weeks. 3 months ago, his biggest concern was closing a £20 million deal. Now, his biggest concern was becoming the kind of man Gabriel could admire when he grew up. When he returned to the living room, Maria was tidying Gabriel's toys. "Maria," Raphael said, "can I stay a little longer?" "You can, but not too late. Gabriel wakes up at 6 in the morning, and I plan to get at least a few hours of sleep." They sat on the sofa, a respectful distance between them, watching the news at low volume so as not to wake Gabriel. "Maria," Raphael said during a commercial, "do you think we have a chance?" "Of what?" "Of us. Of being a real family." Maria was quiet for a long moment. "I think we have a chance to be good parents to Gabriel. The rest, we'll have to see." "That's enough for now." "It's enough for now." Raphael left Maria's apartment that night with a feeling that something fundamental had changed. It wasn't just about Gabriel, although Gabriel was the catalyst. It was about redefining what it meant to be successful, what it meant to have a complete life. Driving back to Chelsea, Raphael made a decision. The next day, he would talk to Charles about restructuring his responsibilities in the company. They would hire more people, delegate more, create systems that would allow the company to function without him needing to be present 16 hours a day. Because for the first time in his adult life, Raphael Miller had something more important than work waiting for him every morning, and he wasn't going to miss that chance again. 2 months had passed since the conversation about priorities and financial help, and Raphael had established a routine that for the first time in his adult life did not revolve entirely around work. Every morning, breakfast with Maria and Gabriel. 3 afternoons a week, he took care of Gabriel while Maria worked on her freelance graphic design projects. Weekends were entirely dedicated to the family, park outings, homemade lunches, and Gabriel's constant discoveries, who was now starting to sit up by himself and demonstrating an increasingly defined personality. The company continued to thrive, to Raphael's own surprise. Charles had taken on more operational responsibilities. They had hired 2 new architects and a competent project manager. Raphael still made the important strategic decisions, but he discovered that he didn't need to micromanage every detail for Miller & Associates to continue growing. On that Friday in September, Raphael arrived at Maria's apartment to find her particularly animated. She was on the phone when he entered, gesturing enthusiastically as she spoke about deadlines and budgets. Gabriel was on the living room rug, trying to reach a toy that had rolled away from him, determined to get it without help. "That's right, Paul," Maria said into the phone. "I can deliver the first version on Monday." "Perfect. Talk to you later." "Good news?" Raphael asked, picking up Gabriel and helping him reach the desired toy. "Very good news. I landed a new client, a tech startup that needs its entire visual identity created from scratch. It's the kind of project I dreamed of doing when I worked at the agency." Raphael smiled, genuinely happy for her. In recent weeks, he had watched Maria rediscover her passion for work. Working from home, she managed to balance motherhood with challenging, creative projects, and it visibly made her more fulfilled. "Is it a big startup?" "Medium. They develop urban sustainability apps. The founder is super visionary. He has incredible ideas about how technology can help cities be greener." Something in her tone when she spoke about the founder made Raphael pay more attention. "You know him?" Maria hesitated for a fraction of a second. He's someone I knew before, from college. Ah. Raphael didn't know why, but that information bothered him slightly. What a coincidence. Yeah. He found me on LinkedIn, said he always admired my work and wanted a designer who understood his vision for the project. Gabriel began to whimper, probably hungry. Maria went to prepare the bottle and Raphael continued playing with his son, but his mind was slightly restless. It wasn't jealousy exactly, he had no right to be jealous, but there was something in the way Maria had spoken about this man that activated a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. Throughout the weekend, Raphael couldn't completely shake that strange feeling. Maria was more animated than usual, more energized. She spoke about the project with an enthusiasm he hadn't seen in a long time, and when the phone rang, she answered quickly and always with a smile in her voice when it was Paul. On Monday, Raphael decided to leave the office early and surprise Maria and Gabriel. He stopped at her favorite bakery and bought homemade fudge brownies and a special coffee she had mentioned wanting to try. When he arrived at the apartment in Notting Hill, he found the door ajar. He could hear voices in the living room, Maria talking to someone. Raphael hesitated for a moment, then gently pushed the door open. Maria was sitting on the sofa with Gabriel in her lap, talking animatedly with a man Raphael didn't recognize. The man was tall, had slightly long brown hair and wore a casual shirt that probably cost more than many people's monthly salary. There was an intimacy in their conversation that made Raphael stop at the door. "I remember when you presented that project in the marketing class," the man was saying. "I knew you'd go far. You always had a unique vision of things." Maria laughed, a kind of laugh Raphael hadn't heard in a long time. "Paul, you're exaggerating. It was just a college assignment." "It wasn't just an assignment. It was pure genius. And look at you now, an incredible mother and an even more talented designer." Raphael knocked softly on the door before entering completely. "Hi." Maria looked at him with an expression that mixed surprise and something that seemed like embarrassment. "Raphael, I didn't expect you so early." The man stood up and extended his hand. "You must be Raphael, Paul Henry Morgan. Maria told me a lot about you." Raphael shook his hand, studying his face. Paul had intelligent green eyes, a confident smile, and that relaxed posture of someone accustomed to success. "Nice to meet you. You're the startup client." "That's right, and much more than a client, actually. Maria and I are old college friends." "That's nice." Raphael sat in the armchair, placing the fudge brownies and coffee on the table. Gabriel reached out his little arms to him, and Raphael picked him up, feeling an irrational relief at his son's obvious preference. "Paul was telling me about the company's expansion," Maria said, and Raphael noticed that she avoided looking directly at him. "They're planning to launch in 3 major cities next year." "Impressive," Raphael commented, observing how Paul looked at Maria. There was nothing explicitly inappropriate in the gaze, but there was an admiration that went beyond the professional. "Maria was always special," Paul said. "Even in college, when all of us were lost, she knew exactly what she wanted to do. Design with purpose, she called it." "Paul is exaggerating," Maria said, but Raphael could see she was flattered by the comment. Gabriel began to get restless, and Raphael stood up. "I'm going to take him for a walk in the square. You two can continue talking about the project." "Raphael, you don't have to," Maria began. "It's no problem. It's good for Gabriel to get some fresh air." Raphael left the apartment with an uncomfortable feeling in his stomach. Paul Morgan was everything he himself used to despise in other men. Too charming, too confident, with that kind of success that seemed to come easily. And worse, he knew a version of Maria that Raphael was only just rediscovering. He walked with Gabriel around the block, trying to process what he had observed. Maria had done nothing wrong. She was working, talking to a client, but there was something in their chemistry that deeply bothered him. "What do you think, Gabriel?" Raphael asked his son. "Is Daddy being paranoid?" Gabriel responded by drooling happily on Raphael's shirt. When they returned to the apartment, Paul was leaving. He greeted Raphael politely and said goodbye to Maria, with a hug that lasted a few seconds longer than Raphael deemed necessary. "It was good to see you, Mari," Paul said, Let's talk tomorrow about those ideas we discussed. After Paul left, Maria busied herself tidying papers scattered on the table, avoiding looking at Raphael. So, Raphael said, setting Gabriel on the rug with his toys. Were you close in college? We were friends, Maria replied, still organizing the papers. Just friends. Maria finally looked at him. Raphael, why are you asking that? Just curious. We dated for a few months in our final year of college. It was a quick thing, not very important. Raphael felt his stomach clench. I see. That was over 10 years ago, Raphael. Long before I met you. I know. As I said, just curious. But it wasn't just curiosity, and they both knew it. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there that morning. In the following days, Raphael tried to act normally, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Paul started appearing more frequently at the apartment for project discussions, always polite with Raphael, always professional with Maria, but there was a familiarity between them that grew with each encounter. Maria was visibly more animated. She spoke about the project with passion, stayed up late working on proposals, and when Paul called, she always answered with an enthusiasm that Raphael couldn't ignore. Are you okay? Maria asked on a Thursday, after Raphael had spent the entire afternoon quiet while taking care of Gabriel. I'm great. Why? You've been strange for a few days, distant, just thinking about work. Maria studied him with a worried expression. Raphael, if something is bothering you can tell me. Nothing's bothering me. But there was. And on Friday, Raphael found out exactly what it was. He had left the office early again, planning to take Maria and Gabriel out to dinner at a new restaurant in Islington. When he arrived at the apartment, he found the door ajar again. Voices were coming from the living room. Raphael approached to announce his presence, but stopped when he heard Paul speaking. Maria, you know I've always admired you. Even in college, even when we were young and foolish, you were special. Paul, let me finish. When I found you on LinkedIn and saw you were single with a child, I thought maybe it was the right time for us to try again. We were good together. Raphael felt the world stop. He stood motionless in the hallway, his heart beating so hard he was sure they could hear it. It's not just about us, Paul continued. It's about Gabriel, too. He needs a stable father figure, someone who can truly be present, not just on weekends. Paul, you don't understand the situation. I understand more than you think. I've seen how his father acts. He shows up when he wants, plays dad for a few hours, and then goes back to his own world. You deserve more than that, Mari. Gabriel deserves more than that. The situation is complicated. It's only complicated because you're allowing it to be. Maria, I can offer real stability, not just financial but emotional. I can be the father Gabriel needs, the partner you deserve. Raphael had heard enough. He left the building without a sound, drove to his apartment, and locked himself inside. Paul's words echoed in his mind. He shows up when he wants, plays dad for a few hours, and then goes back to his own world. Was that how Maria saw his presence in Gabriel's life? Was that how she talked about him to other people? The phone rang several times during the night, Maria calling, probably asking where he was. Raphael didn't answer. He needed time to process what he had heard, to decide what to do with the information that Maria was being courted by a man who could offer everything he himself had failed to offer. On Saturday morning, Maria appeared at his apartment door carrying Gabriel. Raphael, you didn't show up yesterday. You didn't answer my calls. Did something happen? Raphael let her in, but maintained a physical distance that she immediately noticed. I was thinking, he said. About what? About Paul. About the proposal he made to you yesterday. Maria turned pale. You overheard our conversation. I heard enough. Raphael, let me explain. You don't need to explain anything. He's right. About everything. About what? About me just playing dad. About Gabriel deserving a stable father figure. About you deserving a real partner, not someone who's trying to make up for years of absence. Raphael, you're distorting what you heard. Am I? Because it seemed pretty clear to me. And honestly, Maria, maybe he's right. Maybe you two are better off without me complicating things. Gabriel started to cry, as if sensing the tension between his parents. Maria gently rocked him, but her eyes didn't leave Raphael's face. Are you giving up? Again? I'm not giving up, I'm being realistic. Paul can offer you things I can't. Like what? Total presence, complete dedication, a man who won't always have work competing for his attention. Raphael, you've changed, I've seen you change. Changed, or did I just manage to pretend for a few months that it could be different? Maria stared at him with a hurt expression. So that's it? At the first difficulty, the first obstacle, you go back to your old pattern of running away? I'm not running away. Yes, you are. Exactly like you did before. Like you did when you decided that work was more important than our marriage. Like you did when things got difficult between us. You disappear. Her words hit him like slaps, but Raphael forced himself to maintain a neutral expression. Maybe it's better this way. Better for whom? For you who can go back. To your organized life without complications? Because it's definitely not better for Gabriel. Gabriel will be fine. He'll have Paul. Gabriel wants you, Raphael. He smiles when he hears your voice. He looks for you when he's playing. He loves you, and you're willing to abandon him out of pride. It's not pride. What is it then? Fear. Because if it's fear, I understand. I'm scared too. I'm scared to trust you again. I'm scared to believe you've changed and discover I was wrong, but I'm not running away. Raphael turned to the window, unable to meet her gaze. Maria, I heard you talking. I saw how excited you were about the possibility he offered, and I understood that maybe that's what you really want. You misunderstood. I did? You did. Because you heard half a conversation and jumped to conclusions. Because you decided what I feel instead of asking what I feel. Raphael turned back to her. Then tell me, what do you feel? Maria took a deep breath, holding Gabriel closer to her chest. I feel fear, Raphael. Fear of believing you again. But I also feel hope. Hope that maybe this time we can make it work. I still feel something for you, something I never completely got over. And Paul? Paul is a ghost of the past offering an easy version of the future. He offered me stability, security, a life without complications. And for a moment, I considered it. Because it would be easier. Because with you it's difficult. It's risky. It's betting on someone who has hurt me before. And what's your answer? To Paul? My answer is that I don't want easy. I want real. I want you, Raphael. But I want the true version of you, not the version that's trying to prove something. And I want you to want to stay because you want to be here, not because you feel obligated or because you're competing with another man. Raphael was silent for a long moment, processing her words. Gabriel had stopped crying and was now watching his father with big, curious eyes. I need time, Raphael said finally, to think, to decide if I can be the man you deserve. How much time? I don't know. Maria nodded slowly. All right. But Raphael, while you're thinking, remember that Gabriel is growing up. Remember that every day that passes is a day you can't get back. And remember that I've already spent 2.5 years without you. I survived before. I can survive again. She headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. And Raphael? Next time you overhear a conversation, listen until the end. Because after Paul made his proposal, I said no. I said I was trying to rebuild something with you, that I believed you had truly changed. I said I didn't want an easy life. I wanted a real life, even if it was harder. Maria left, leaving Raphael alone in his perfect and empty apartment, with the silence echoing around him like an accusation. That night Raphael stayed awake very late, looking at the illuminated city from the window. He thought about Gabriel, who now associated his presence with security and fun. He thought about Maria, who had risked opening up to him again despite all the reasons she had not to trust him. He thought about Paul, who offered a clean, uncomplicated solution to all their problems. And he thought about himself, the man he had been, the man he was trying to become, and the man he was afraid to discover he truly was. Over the next 5 days, Raphael did not appear at Maria's apartment. He didn't call, he didn't text. He returned to his old pattern of working late, burying himself in spreadsheets and meetings to avoid thinking about the emptiness he had created in his own life. Charles tried to talk to him, but Raphael deflected. His employees noticed that he had returned to his old obsessive mode, micromanaging projects and demanding detailed reports on everything. "Man, you're acting like Raphael from 2 years ago," Charles commented one afternoon. "I thought we'd moved past that phase. I'm just focusing on work. You're running away from emotional work again." Raphael didn't answer, but he knew Charles was right. It was on Thursday of the following week that Raphael made a decision. Or rather, the decision was made for him when he received a call in the middle of an important meeting. "Raphael?" It was Maria, and her voice sounded tense. "Gabriel is in the hospital. He suddenly had a very high fever, and the doctor wants to run some tests." Raphael got up from the meeting table before she even finished speaking. "Which hospital? I'm on my way." "The London Clinic, Children's Emergency Room." Raphael left the meeting without explanations, got in his car, and drove like a madman through London traffic. Throughout the journey, his mind was consumed by a panic he had never experienced before. Gabriel sick, Gabriel in the hospital, Gabriel needing him, and he wasn't even there when it all happened. He found Maria in the waiting room of the emergency room, pale and visibly frightened. She was alone. "How is he?" Raphael asked, sitting next to her. "The doctors are examining him. His fever reached 40 degrees Celsius. I've never seen him like this." "Where's Paul?" The question came out before Raphael could filter it. Maria looked at him with a tired expression. "Paul, who?" "Raphael. I refused his proposal last week. I made it clear I wasn't interested. Why would you think I'd call him in a situation like this?" I thought..." "You thought wrong. The only person I wanted here was you. Even after you disappeared again, even after you proved I was right to be afraid to trust you." Before Raphael could respond, a doctor approached them. "Gabriel Spencer's family." "Yes." Maria stood up quickly. "How is he?" "He'll be fine. It was a simple viral infection, but it causes high fever in babies. We'll medicate him and observe for a few hours, but it's nothing serious." Raphael felt his legs buckle with relief. "Can I see him?" "Of course. He's awake and in good spirits, considering the circumstances." In the hospital room, Gabriel was lying in a hospital crib, looking around with curiosity more than discomfort. When he saw Raphael, his eyes lit up, and he extended his little arms. Raphael picked him up carefully, feeling the still slightly elevated warmth of the small body. Gabriel snuggled against his father's chest with a sigh of contentment, as if he knew he was safe now. "Hi, champ," Raphael murmured. "You scared everyone." At that moment, holding his sick son in a hospital room, Raphael understood something fundamental. It didn't matter how many Pauls appeared in Maria's life. It didn't matter how many times he himself doubted his ability to be a good father. Gabriel was his son, and he would never abandon him again. "Maria," Raphael said, still holding Gabriel. "Can we talk?" Gabriel slept in Raphael's arms for almost the entire observation period at the hospital. His fever had completely subsided, and the doctors discharged him late in the afternoon. Throughout their time at the hospital, Raphael and Maria spoke little, but there was a different tension between them now. Not the hostile tension of the past few days, but something deeper, more urgent. When they finally arrived at the apartment in Notting Hill, Raphael helped Maria put Gabriel in his crib. The baby was exhausted from the day at the hospital, but his sleep seemed peaceful and restorative. They stood for a few minutes watching him sleep side by side without speaking. "Thank you for coming," Maria said softly when they left the room. "Thank you. Maria, he's my son. Of course I'd come." "You didn't come last week when he learned to clap. You didn't come when he started sitting up by himself. Why would I be sure you'd come when he was sick?" Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. Raphael sat on the sofa, running his hands through his hair. "You're right. About everything." Maria sat in the armchair opposite him, but this time the distance felt like an abyss. Raphael, I can't do this anymore. I can't anymore handle you appearing and disappearing from our lives whenever you feel insecure or scared. I know. Do you really know? Because Gabriel is 7 months old now. He recognizes you. He misses you when you don't show up. And She paused, swallowing the words that were caught in her throat. You what? I miss you too. And that scares me, because it means I let you in again. I let you become important again. And now you're showing me I was right to be afraid. Raphael leaned forward, finally looking directly into her eyes. Maria, I need to say you something about why I disappeared. I know why you disappeared, because you overheard Paul talking to me and got jealous. It wasn't just jealousy. It was fear. Fear that he was right about me. Fear that I really was just a man playing dad, trying to make up for guilt with a few hours a week of presence. Maria was quiet, waiting for him to continue. When I heard Paul say that Gabriel deserved a stable father figure, that you deserved a real partner, I realized that maybe he was offering you everything I couldn't be. And that's what you decided? That you couldn't be what we needed? I wanted to decide that. It would be easier. But today at the hospital, when you called me... Raphael paused, searching for the right words. When you called me and said Gabriel was sick, I understood something. I understood that no matter how much I'm afraid of failing as a father, no matter how many better men than me appear in your life, Gabriel is my son, and I love him more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Raphael, let me finish. I love Gabriel with an intensity. That scares me. And I love you, Maria. Not as I loved you before when we were young and I thought love was enough. I love you now, knowing exactly what I lost when I let you go, knowing exactly what I have to lose if I mess everything up again. Maria wiped away a tear that had escaped. And what does that change? Because you loved me before and still lost me. It changes that this time I know that love alone isn't enough, that I need to make different choices, that I need to be the man Gabriel will admire when he grows up and that you can trust to share your life with. And can you be that man? I don't know, but I want to try. For real. Forever. Maria was silent for a long time, looking at her hands. Raphael, I also need to tell you something. About Paul. Maria, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because I want you to understand why I refused his proposal. She took a deep breath. When Paul offered me that easy, stable, uncomplicated life, I was tempted. For a few seconds, I actually considered accepting. Raphael felt his stomach clench, but forced himself to listen. Because it would be simple. Paul is a good man. He would take good care of me and Gabriel. There would be no risks, no fear of being hurt again. Why didn't you accept? Because I realized I don't want a life without risks. I don't want security if it comes at the price of giving up something true. Maria finally looked at him. I love you, Raphael. I still love you, even knowing you might hurt me again, even knowing you might not truly change. I prefer the risk of trying with you than the guarantee of a lukewarm life with anyone else. Raphael felt as if he could breathe again for the first time in a week. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can try again, but this time with different rules, this time knowing exactly what's at stake. What rules? Maria leaned forward. First rule, no running away. When things get difficult, when you feel insecure or scared, we talk. We fight if necessary, but we don't disappear. Agreed. Second rule, Gabriel comes first, always. That doesn't mean our relationship isn't important. It means his needs are the absolute priority. Agreed. Third rule, total honesty. If you're struggling to balance work and family, tell me. If you're afraid of something, tell me. If another Paul appears in my life, I'll tell you. No secrets, no half-truths. Maria. And fourth rule, she continued, her voice growing softer. We go slowly. Very slowly. Because I need to relearn to trust you, and you need to learn to be the father and partner you want to be. No pressure, no unrealistic expectations. Raphael got up and went to sit beside her on the sofa, but maintained a respectful distance. I accept all the rules, but can I add one? Which one? Fifth rule. When I do something right, when I manage to be the man you deserve, you tell me too, because I'll need to know I'm on the right track." Maria smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her in weeks. "I accept the fifth rule." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, listening to the city noises outside and the small sounds of Gabriel sleeping in the bedroom. "Raphael," Maria said, "what are we going to tell people? About us?" "The truth, that we are Gabriel's parents and we're learning how to make this work." "What if it doesn't work?" "It will work, because this time I won't give up. This time I will fight for us every day." That night, Raphael slept on Maria's sofa, not because they had rekindled romantically, but because he didn't want to be away from Gabriel after the hospital scare, and because Maria, though she wouldn't admit it, didn't want to be alone either. In the middle of the night, when Gabriel woke up crying, Raphael automatically got up to take care of him. He changed his diaper, gave him his bottle, and calmed him until he fell back asleep. When he returned to the sofa, he found Maria watching him from the bedroom door. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For being here, for taking care of him, as if it had always been natural for you. It's becoming natural. He's becoming the most important thing in my life. And doesn't that scare you?" Raphael thought about the question. "It does scare me, yes, but not enough to make me run away again." The next few months were a period of rediscovery and reconstruction. Raphael completely restructured his professional life. He hired more people, delegated more responsibilities, and established clear boundaries between work and family. Some business opportunities were lost, some clients were dissatisfied with his reduced availability, but for the first time in his life, Raphael was sure he was making the right choices. Maria returned to working on more freelance projects, but now, with Raphael sharing Gabriel's care, she could be more selective and only accept jobs that truly inspired her. Paul tried to contact her a few times, but she was clear about her decision, and he respected. Gabriel grew quickly, and Raphael was present for every milestone. The first hesitant steps in the apartment living room. The first words, "Daddy," was the third, after "Mama" and "No." The first attempts to eat by himself, which resulted in more food on the floor than in his mouth. Slowly, very slowly, Raphael and Maria rebuilt their relationship. It started with long conversations after Gabriel was asleep. It progressed to homemade dinners on weekends. It evolved into family outings, movie nights at home, and gradually an emotional intimacy that neither rushed to turn physical. "You've changed," Maria commented, one December night, as they assembled Gabriel's first big boy bed. The small apartment had transformed into a true family home, with toys scattered, photos of Gabriel at various stages, and a chaotic comfort that Raphael had learned to love. "How so?" "You're more present, not just physically, emotionally too. When you're here, you're really here." Raphael stopped assembling the crib and looked at her. "I learned that being partially present is the same as being absent. Gabriel deserves my complete attention. You deserve my complete attention. And the company? Don't you miss the adrenaline of controlling every detail?" "Sometimes, but I discovered something interesting. The company works better when I'm not trying to micromanage everything, and I work better when I have something more important than work waiting for me at home." Maria smiled. "Gabriel is changing you, making you a better person. You two are changing me, making me the man I always wanted to be but never knew how." It was on a January afternoon, when Gabriel was playing in the park near the apartment, that Raphael realized something fundamental had changed in him. A well-dressed woman approached him on the bench where he was sitting. "Excuse me," she said. "Aren't you Raphael Miller from Miller and Associates?" "I am. I'm Carla Mason from Mason & Sons Developers. We're interested in a partnership for the Shoreditch project. Can we schedule a meeting?" A year ago, Raphael would have immediately started discussing business, exchanged cards and scheduled a meeting for the next day. But at that moment, his eye was on Gabriel, who had just discovered how to climb the slide by himself, and on Maria, who encouraged him with patience and love. "Carla, call my office on Monday. My assistant will schedule something for next week. Right. Now I'm with my family." The woman seemed surprised but nodded and walked away. Maria, who had witnessed the conversation, approached Raphael. "You just turned down a business opportunity." "I turned down an interruption to my time with my children." Maria paused. "Your children?" Raphael realized his slip and blushed. "Gabriel. I meant Gabriel." "No," Maria said softly. "You said children. Plural." It was a slip of the tongue. Maria studied him carefully. "Raphael, do you want to have more children?" The question caught him off guard. They had carefully avoided any conversation about the long-term future, focusing on rebuilding the present. Yes, with you, if you want, when you want. If you think I've proven I can be the father Gabriel deserves. And a husband? Have you proven you can be the husband I deserve?" Raphael turned completely to face her. "Maria, I want to marry you again. I want us to be a real, official family. I want more children with you. I want to grow old with you. But only if you want that too." Maria was quiet for a long moment, watching Gabriel playing happily in the park. "I want that too," she said finally. "But not now." "When?" "When I'm absolutely sure you won't change your mind. When Gabriel is old enough to understand what it means. When we both are ready to make that commitment, knowing exactly what we're promising each other." "How long?" "As long as it takes." "But Raphael, I want you to know something. For the first time since we separated, I can imagine a future with you. A real, lasting, happy future." That night, after Gabriel was asleep, Raphael and Maria sat on the small sofa in the apartment. For the first time in over a year, Raphael kissed her. It was a soft kiss, full of promises and care, very different from the passionate kisses of their youth. It was the kiss of two people who had lost a lot, learned even more, and chosen to try again with wisdom. "Raphael," Maria whispered against his lips, "I love you. I love you too. And this time I know what that means." 2 years passed. Gabriel was almost 3 years old, talking non-stop, running everywhere, and demonstrating a personality that mixed his mother's determination with his father's patience. Raphael had bought a house in a quiet residential neighborhood with a yard for Gabriel to play and space for a family to grow. Maria had moved there after they made their relationship official, but maintained her independent professional space. Raphael's company continued to be successful, but now it operated with a structure that allowed him to be truly present in Gabriel's life. He hadn't missed any important milestones in his son's development, actively participated in school activities, and Gabriel clearly adored him. On a March afternoon, as Raphael helped Gabriel build a tower of colorful blocks in the living room, Maria approached them with a different expression on her face. "Boys," she said, "I need to tell you something." Gabriel looked up, interested in any news. Raphael noticed something in her tone of voice that made him pay full attention. "Gabriel is going to be a big brother." Raphael dropped the block he was holding. "Maria, I'm pregnant, Raphael, 2 months along." Gabriel, who didn't fully understand what that meant, applauded excitedly. "Baby." Raphael stood up and wrapped Maria in a careful hug. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I took 3 tests. We talked about wanting more children and, well, it happened." "How are you feeling?" "Excited, nervous, happy." Maria looked at Gabriel, who had gone back to playing with his blocks. "And ready. This time I'm ready to share everything from the very first moment." Raphael kissed her forehead. "This time you won't have to share. This time we'll experience everything together." That night, after Gabriel was asleep, Raphael and Maria sat on the porch of their new house, planning the future. They talked about names, about how to prepare Gabriel to be a big brother, about the changes they would need to make to the house. "Raphael," Maria said, "are you happy, really happy?" "I'm happier than I thought I could be. You gave me a second chance to be a father, to be a partner, to be the man I wanted to be, and now we're building a real family. And aren't you afraid? That it will be too much? That you'll revert to old patterns?" Raphael thought about the question seriously. I am afraid, yes, but it's a different kind of fear than I felt before. Before, I was afraid of not being good enough, so I ran away. Now I'm afraid of losing all this, so I fight to be better every day. And if you fail, if there are difficult days, then you remind me of our rules, remind me why we're doing this, remind me of what truly matters. Maria took his hand. You've changed, Raphael. Truly. Gabriel is lucky to have you as a father. And this baby that's coming? This baby will have the father that Gabriel has now, the present, patient, loving father, the father who puts family first. And you? What will you have? Maria smiled. I'll have the partner I always wanted, the man who chose me not out of obligation or guilt, but because he genuinely wants to share his life with me, the man who understood that love is a verb, not a feeling. Raphael kissed her softly. Maria? Yes. Marry me. Raphael, I know we said we'd wait, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want to marry you before the baby is born. I want Gabriel to be there as our ring bearer. I want to formalize what we already are in practice. A family. Maria was quiet for a moment, considering. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. I've never been so sure of anything in my life. Then yes, I'll marry you. But nothing too big. Something simple, intimate, focused on what truly matters. Our close friends, our families, Gabriel as ring bearer, and the promise that this time it's forever. Forever, Maria agreed. The wedding happened 3 months later, in a simple ceremony in the backyard of the house they now shared. Gabriel, in a small suit and crooked tie, carried the rings with the seriousness of someone who knew he was participating in something important. Maria was radiant in a simple dress that discreetly accommodated her 5-month bump. Raphael wore the same suit from his first wedding, but this time, he knew exactly what the words meant when he promised to love, honor, and cherish her until death parted them. This time it's different, Raphael murmured in Maria's ear during their waltz. How so? This time I know that marrying is just the beginning. The real work begins after the party. And are you ready for the real work? I'm looking forward to the real work. Sophia was born on a sunny September morning, after a smooth labor in which Raphael was present from the first moment to the last. Gabriel, now 3½, met his sister at the hospital with adorable seriousness, delicately touching her tiny hand. She's my sister, he announced to anyone willing to listen. I'm going to take care of her. We're going to take care of her, Raphael gently corrected. All of us will take care of her. Watching Gabriel hold his baby sister for the first time, with Maria glowing despite the exhaustion of labor, Raphael felt a completeness he had never experienced before. This was what he had been working toward without knowing it, not just success or achievement, but this, a family created through love, loss, forgiveness, and the courage to try again. You're crying, Maria observed, smiling tiredly. I'm happy. I'm complete. Even with all the mess ahead, 2 small children, sleepless nights, a constantly messy house. Raphael looked around the hospital room. Gabriel was humming softly to Sophia, who slept peacefully in his small arms. Maria was beautiful, even exhausted. And he, Raphael Miller, was exactly where he wanted to be. Especially with all the mess ahead, he said. Because now I know that the mess is the best part. It's where real life happens. 3 years later, at Gabriel's 6th birthday party, Raphael watched his family spread across the backyard of their home. Sophia, now 3, ran after butterflies with the typical determination of her age. Maria, 8 months pregnant with their 3rd child, chatted with the other mothers while keeping an eye on the children. Gabriel, the birthday boy, led a group of friends in a treasure hunt he had planned himself. Charles approached Raphael, carrying 2 glasses of water. You look thoughtful for someone at a children's party. I'm thinking about how life can completely change in just a few years. For the better. Raphael looked around again. The house was a joyful mess. The yard was full of children running and shouting. Maria laughed at something a friend had told her, her hand automatically caressing her belly. Gabriel ran up to him to show him a treasure he had found. "Infinitely for the better," Raphael replied, lifting Gabriel into his arms. "I didn't know it was possible to be so happy with so much chaos." "Ah, but you've learned the secret to masculine happiness," Charles joked. "Completely surrender to feminine chaos and discover that it's exactly where you always wanted to be." Raphael laughed, agreeing. At that moment, Sophia ran to him, too wanting to be held. He picked her up in his free arm, holding both children, and Maria approached to join the family group. "How are you feeling?" Raphael asked, wrapping his free arm around Maria. "Tired, but happy. Very happy." She looked at Gabriel and Sophia in his arms. "You did it, you know." "Did what?" "Become the man they'll want to be when they grow up, the father they'll use as a role model for their own relationships." Raphael felt that familiar clenching in his chest. The overwhelming love he felt for this family he had almost lost and now knew how to cherish every day. "And you achieved something too," he said to Maria. "What?" "You transformed me into the man I didn't know I could be. You showed me that success isn't measured in money or professional achievements. It's measured in children's laughter, in hi daddy at the end of the day, in someone who loves you enough to give you a second chance." Maria kissed him softly, a kiss that promised many years of love, conflicts resolved with honest conversations, challenges faced together and a family growing and changing, but always with love as its foundation. "Forever?" Raphael asked, as he sometimes did when he wanted to reaffirm that this was real. "Forever," Maria replied, as she always did. Gabriel, who had observed the exchange between his parents with the peculiar wisdom of children, shouted "Family hug group." And there, in the middle of the chaotic and perfect birthday party, the family that had formed through loss, strengthened through forgiveness, and solidified through true love, embraced, complete, and definitively in the place where they belonged. Together. Raphael knew there would still be challenges ahead. More children meant more responsibilities, more worries, more sleepless nights. But they also meant more love, more laughter, more moments like that. And for the first time in his life, Raphael Miller was absolutely certain that he had made the right choices. He had chosen family. He had chosen love. He had chosen to be present. And as a reward for these choices, he had gained a life that was infinitely richer than any professional success he could have achieved. He had gained the chance to be the hero in the life story of 3 little people who called him Daddy. And he had gained a partner who loved him, not despite his flaws, but for his courage to admit those flaws and work every day to be better. That night, after the children had fallen asleep exhausted from the party and Maria went to rest, Raphael stayed in the backyard tidying up the celebration's mess. But instead of seeing work, he saw evidence of joy. Deflated balloons, cake crumbs on the ground, scattered toys, all testimony to a perfect day in a life that had become, finally, exactly what it always should have been. And when he went inside and kissed each of his sleeping children, Raphael Miller knew that he had found his true success, not in the next skyscraper he would build, or the next deal he would close, but in the peaceful little faces that trusted him completely to protect them, love them, and be present for all the important moments of their lives. It was a responsibility that scared and inspired him every day, and it was the most important thing he would ever do.